Alright guys, TacticalRab here and today, hope you're doing well and enjoying your day so far. Scrappy has now responded to the big discussions that have emerged over the last couple of weeks about his future in that Toronto franchise given their current trajectory. Many have linked him to OpTic. Scrappy though doesn't seem so happy with that suggestion, but also reveals quite the update on the Scrappy versus Drazah drama. It all kicked off between the respective girlfriends back at the start of March. Now there's a rumour that a certain someone may have tried to get Scrappy's girlfriend fired from her job. Very much interested in your thoughts in the comments below. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always, I would greatly appreciate it. First of all, SlimSix, he's back in business today. Today, I believe, is qualifying in race 1 at the Barber Motorsports Park. So, yeah, here is the boy, and here he is having a bit of an excursion, shall we say, off the track yesterday, doing a bit of lawn mowing. So, obviously, if you guys didn't see, it was, a month or so ago now, the Crim won his first couple of races at Sebring. Today, he's in Barber for the second round of the championship. Also wanted to give a big shout out to Ethan Spencer because it was his last day at Esports Engine yesterday. An absolute legend in that team who will be deeply missed going forward. He was a big part of everything that happened behind the scenes over at Esports Engine. Was a big part of when I was at the Boston event last year, getting us on the desk and doing all that type of stuff was fantastic. Even if you guys look at the right hand side, out of this explore column, Esports Engine's Ethan departs, leaving lasting legacy is what it says. So even the Twitter AI picked up on this story yesterday, which I thought was actually really cool. And Zini and others giving Ethan a great shout. I think he's got something really cool planned actually because he starts his new chapter on Monday. So hoping the best for Ethan going forwards, and honestly for the team, because I think it's a pretty big loss to Esports Engine, and exactly what that means for the future of the CDL side. We know that probably going forwards they will continue to outsource a lot of their production stuff. We know that obviously a lot of the internal CDL people are gone, and it's now everything is basically outsourced. I don't expect that to change, certainly as we move away somewhat from the franchise situation that we've been in for the last few years. Well, still franchising, but you're paying all the fees back. That doesn't sound quite like franchising to me. Other things to discuss as well, because of course Haggy was talking about Flames. Had a great result yesterday, a phenomenal debut for the Los Angeles Guerrillas. Parasite was a big part of, his come up as it were, and Parasite says, I'm easily the best talent scout in the CDL, no contest. It's interesting for Haggy, right, because of Parasite, he doesn't like to be called Haggy, just because he was, trying for some time to get a spot on a CDL team, as a coach or something like that. That never happened. I know that even Nadeshot talked about it and was like, yeah, Parasite, we're not sure he'd be great in that environment, given his past and his history and the teammates that he's teamed with, and the implication was, yeah, we're not willing to take the risk. But in the same way that Doug, and look, you say what you want on Doug, most of the guys that he has suggested will be good players have been good players. He's not going to be right every time. This is my thoughts on the whole Pentagrxm thing. I think that Doug was involved in getting Pentagrxm into the team. Based on what I saw from Penta, I'm not sure he's the man for the job. They play tonight. We'll see if he has a turnaround series. Doug's not going to be right every time, but on the likes of Ghosty, on Beans, I think even on Snoopy, sure, the results aren't there, but the talent certainly is. Among many others that Doug has played with over the last few years have gone on to do great things. So, there are good players out there that can spot talent. Parasite might well be one of them. Maybe a CDL team should have a think about that. But Flames actually moves into 3rd place on the best ever debut series KD in a rookie history. Of course, it does matter who you play, right? That has something to do with it. Stanley, though, had a 1.52 on his debut. Fame had a 1.50 when he debuts. But Flames, here he is at a 1.36. Higher than Insight, higher than Scrappy, higher than many other, notable names, shall we say, in the CDL history. And he's the first new entry from this year to enter the list. So I wonder, if Guerrillas turn it around, I made this point on the Joke Check show probably a couple of weeks ago now about Los Angeles Guerrillas. We were predicting which teams would make the World Championship, and well, let's just say the 4 teams that won't. I don't think Boston will, as it stands. I don't think that Surge will, although they may have improved enough to make it. I think it's possible. It's honestly really difficult to call right now, because Minnesota Rocker could go into an absolute spiral. That is not out of the realms of possibility. But assuming Rocker do make it, which they have a bit of a points gap, but it's not much, I'm not going to lie, as it stands. They honestly, they look pretty atrocious at the moment. But I think the general feeling was on the show a couple of weeks ago that it would probably be Boston, Surge, Miami, Guerrillas that wouldn't make it to the World Championship. A lot of that is based on Miami's LAN performances as well, which of course have been less than stellar. But I made the point at the time that if Guerrillas bring in Flames, I think they can actually make champs. And genuinely, if they beat Boston tonight, I may be on board with the idea that they are going to make it to the World Championship. And also with Guerrillas, To be fair, their organisation is difficult to root for just because they haven't committed to cards, at least in recent times. They're getting out of it. But the players, I think, are very easy to root for. Like, I think it's a likeable team. They don't get into any drama. I think Estriel and Flames seem like great guys. Diamond Khan, like, he keeps himself to himself. They don't get into any, beef. They seem to just be trying to be the best version of themselves, and they're trying to prove people wrong. So I think Gorillas are actually a really exciting team to watch, especially given that they finally put Flames into the team. It took them long enough, I'm not gonna lie, and obviously that series was pretty rough, and even as Dashy says, because Rocker tweeted this out, it's so free, oh no, we're playing Gorillas, but we're playing them online because they get slammed online, and then, yeah, they got slapped around. But I gotta share a couple of clips here from Scrappy's stream last night. So he was playing some CS2, he was on Inferno, we'll see in a second, and, well, he was being asked a question in the chat about the OpTic stuff, and, look, I think this is somewhat inevitable. I'm somewhat surprised that the discussion on Scrappy on OpTic has gone to this level. Obviously, Toronto have had a hard time lately. They got embarrassed by FaZe, but it's not like OpTic are, bad. OpTic are actually very good right now and are the team that seems most likely of anyone to probably find a way to beat FaZe this season. But still, if OpTic can't beat FaZe this year, if OpTic do regress somewhat, then obviously it's possible that Scrappy goes over there. And I wouldn't say that he doesn't help himself, but, the fact that he plays a lot with, obviously, good boys with Dashy, plays a lot with Pred and with Shotzzy and those guys, like, understandably, people have put 2 and 2 together that Scrappy has probably had a vision of himself in an OpTic jersey at some point in the future. Now, obviously, Scrappy's going to say, look, I like my boys, I like my team, I wish everyone would shut up about this, and fair enough, and I'm sure the same thing happened to Pred last year. But the thing is with Pred, it was like a known thing. Like, everyone really knew that he was going to be going to OpTic in the off-season. It wasn't really a surprise, so I guess for Pred it was probably frustrating seeing OpTic Pred in the chat the whole time when he was still on the Seattle Surge, but I think he probably knew what the situation was going to be there, right? Whereas for Scrappy, this is obviously, it's not like the contract is basically already done. It may happen, it may well not happen. It depends massively on what happens from now to the end of the season. So Scrappy would prefer everyone to shut up about it, and fair enough. But if Toronto continue to underperform, and OpTic, still can't beat FaZe, let's say, going at the major, then people are going to think, well, what's the next super team that OpTic are going to try and form? And obviously Scrappy could be involved. The other clip, though, that I think is probably more interesting is on the Drazah Scrappy drama, and, well, just some more beef behind the scenes.
Bro, why you guys always love asking me about OpTic, bro? You guys love asking me about that shit, man. Leave me alone, bro. Leave me the fuck alone. Leave me alone. I like my team, bro. My team's godlike. I want a fucking major, bro. I'm thinking about this year only. What's next major? Who gives a fuck, man? God damn. Who cares? I love asking me about that shit. But someone then goes out of their way, right, to email someone's employer, right, and get their job taken from them. That's when it's like, all right, we're on some weird, sketchy ass shit. You know what I mean? We're on some weird, sketchy ass shit. Right? Is that weird, or like? Now I'm gonna say something. It wasn't Drazah that did it. I don't know if he knew that was like what she was doing or what. But yo, that's some weird ass shit, man. That's some weird ass shit. Emailed my girlfriend's brokerage to get her fired. Emailed my girlfriend's brokerage to get her fired? Are we serious? Are we serious?
So just to give you guys the quick lowdown on this, I can't go through every tweet again, it'll take all day. You'll have to go back to some of the videos in the early part of March just to look through the Darian versus Keeks drama. But if you guys are completely new to this, living under a rock, Darian is Scrappy's girlfriend, Keeks of course is Drazah's girlfriend, and well, there's been lots of drama. This tweet, I mean, I just searched Darian Keeks to see what I could find. This one came up. There were other ones, of course, and I wonder whether it was this statement at the end that kind of got to Keeks. I don't really know. But, you know, so Darren, if you guys aren't aware, is a real estate agent, right? I'm pretty sure. I don't know, something like that anyway. She works in real estate. And obviously she took to the timeline big time to talk about Keeks at the time, and she had many other tweets, not just like this. It was the start of March, there was drama, and then like at the end of March after the major, like, you know, things kind of went crazy, I'm not gonna lie. So then, okay, people obviously were looking up Darren. I imagine Keeks was probably looking up where she works, and Scrappy didn't want to say it initially, and then he basically said what he was trying to say, because he was like, oh, like a certain someone may have tried to get somebody fired from their job by contacting their employer. And then he was like, yeah, I don't know if Drazah knew anything about this, but seemingly his implication was that Keeks, either with Drazah's knowledge or without his knowledge, tried to send, I don't know, send some sort of email to Darian's employer to say, hey, like, she said this about, I don't know exactly what it would be, but apparently she tried to contact the employer to get Darian fired, which is a pretty, you know, big step to take. Like, there's one level where it's just kind of like personal beef, you know, that kind of kicks off between the players and the girlfriends and all this. But when you're then going out of your way to try and force someone to lose their job, that's kind of like escalating the situation to some degree. It's no longer, you know, very personal beef on Twitter and the tunnel. And clearly, they obviously don't like each other. And Scrappy and Drazah are, you know, obviously they had some beef themselves anyway, because Scrappy said what he said about Drazah's, you know, Keeks at the same time. But then obviously the girlfriends got involved and it kind of went nuclear to some degree. You know, this is now escalating it to one step further. I wonder when this happened. I mean, probably around about, I imagine, honestly, this tweet might have had a part to play in that. But I guess I'm just speculating at that point. But let's say it was the end of March or something when this supposed email was sent. Darian, I imagine, would have found out about this. Scrappy then finds out about this. And it's probably making it rather clear that this situation is not going to change anytime soon. So I wonder if with this latest, like, escalation of the situation, whether anything would escalate, you know, come a LAN event, right? I mean, in Toronto, Darian's going to be there. Keeks presumably is going to be there. Like, it's going to be an interesting one. I'm looking forward to it, is all I'll say on that. And obviously there was also, like, the OpTic side of the discussion. Pred and Shotzzy here last night with the Mavs game, which I thought was pretty cool to spot. And maybe Scrappy's going to be joining them here next year. Maybe he's not. I guess that remains to be seen. But, you know, fists could be thrown on main stage in Toronto if we get another FaZe Toronto game. Or maybe not fists, you know. It might be slapping people around. We shall see. Quickly before we discuss today's series, because Minnesota Rocker, they play again tonight, and, well, there was some debate really on whether the Stanley pickup was the right or the wrong call, and sure, Stanley's numbers that series were the best in terms of KD, but as aBeZy says, look, he has a 1.3, 64 kills, but he has less damage than accuracy. You know, the same damage as the rest of his team. What's going on? And Ben Jennessy was kind of, I don't know, he's going prime Stanley hater mode at this point, which I thought was rather entertaining. And this, I mean, look, I don't know. I just thought this is an interesting comparison, shall we say, from Filthy Milk here. But they do play this evening up against the Los Angeles Thieves. There are two other games on the day as well. And two other, you know, pretty interesting games. I will say, like, as the start of the season, there were lots of 3-0 smoke shows between the top teams and the worst teams. And maybe you look at these games, you don't think they're that good. But genuinely, they're really interesting to me. I think there's a lot to be learned about where these teams currently stand in the respective rankings. Gorillas versus Boston. I mean, this is, if Boston lose this series, their chances of the World Championship are basically dusted. They could still do it, obviously. They could still win the final major or whatever. But they would be a long way behind here. And obviously, if Gorillas beat them, then that's another 10 points for Gorillas that will help them get to the World Championship instead. So Boston need to win this one. They needed to win last week up against the Minnesota Rocker. They didn't. They bottled it in Game 5 big time. I don't know what those guys were doing. It's difficult for me to have confidence in Boston. They can shoot straight, sure. And sometimes they're going to play better. But Gorillas strike me as a more complete team. And, you know, they pretty much trounced Minnesota Rocker yesterday, a team that Boston went Game 5, Round 11 with and threw it away. So I think I've got to take Gorillas here. They're riding high on the confidence of yesterday. Until I see some better Game 5 plays from Boston, I can't, in good faith, actually pick them to win. Ravens-Toronto, I was really looking forward to before yesterday's series. And sure, it was a Game 5 win for Thieves, which I probably would have taken anyway. But just like the way that they collapsed in that Game 4, Game 5 didn't strike me with much confidence. And also Scrappy versus Clay. I feel like he's like always going to come to play in these series. So I actually think Toronto might take this one reasonably comfortably. But just the fact that Ravens did take down the Subliners last week made me think this series could be interesting. And I hope that it will be. But my feeling is that Toronto do get the job done. But again, we're talking Envoy and Hardpoint. Like, that's just a key storyline to look for right now, because he's averaged like a 0.6 in his last 10 Hardpoints. It might be even worse. And then Thieves Minnesota, probably not much needs to be said on that series as of yesterday's results, with both teams, of course, having a rather different outcome. But very much interested your thoughts on all this stuff in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new, take care, and I'll see you next time.